we cover sports, right? Don't we cover sports? Looking at one of my business charities, do we cover sports? Do we cover sports? Aaron, do we cover sports? The story is the story, Sue Bird. What was Stephen A. Smith and Shannon guilty of exactly?
Did you catch what Sue Bird said about the WNBA playoffs? She's fired up, and for good reason. ESPN hosts are pushing a narrative that's got her steamed. But here's the thing, Bird's got facts that tell a whole different story. Ready to hear what's really happening with WNBA viewership? Sue Bird, WNBA legend, just stepped up to defend her league against Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe. She's not holding back, and you won't believe the numbers she's throwing out there. We're talking viewership stats that'll make your head spin. But this isn't just about numbers, folks. It's about the future of women's basketball and how we talk about these amazing athletes. Trust me, after this video, you'll never look at the WNBA the same way again. The truth Bird's dropping, it's a game changer. So let's dive in and see why Bird's call out is shaking things up big time.
I got a transition. I wasn't going to bring this up, but I saw it and then I read the article. And to be quite honest with you, I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with Sue Bird.
Let's talk about the Caitlyn Clark effect. Everyone's saying she's the reason for the WNBA's surge, right? Well, Sue Bird just dropped a truth bomb that's got people scratching their heads. What if I told you the league's killing it even without Clark on the court? You've heard the buzz. Caitlyn Clark this, Caitlyn Clark that. The media's been painting her as the savior of women's basketball, but hold up, Sue Bird's not having it. She's calling out this narrative and she's got the receipts to back it up. Here's the deal, some big name sports commentators have been pushing this idea that the WNBA's success is all thanks to Clark. They're acting like she's single-handedly carrying the league on her shoulders, but Bird's saying not so fast. You want to know what's really wild? The WNBA playoffs are seeing a 130% increase in viewership compared to last year. And guess what? Clark's not even playing in them. That's right, the league's crushing it without the rookie sensation on the court.
I want to say the semifinals games are up like 130%, and that's without Caitlyn. Sue Bird calls out ESPN host for, quote, hating on WNBA playoff ratings after Caitlyn Clark's exit.
Now, don't get me wrong, Clark's impact is huge. When she's playing, the numbers are through the roof. Bird called them astronomical, but here's the kicker. The WNBA's appeal goes way beyond just one star player. This whole situation is shining a light on a bigger issue. It's about how we talk about women's sports, how we value female athletes. The media is quick to latch onto one star and act like she's the whole show, but that's not fair to Clark, and it's definitely not fair to all the other amazing players in the league. Think about it. Would we ever say that LeBron James is single-handedly responsible for the NBA's success? Of course not. So why are we doing it to Clark and the WNBA? Bird's call out is forcing us to take a hard look at these assumptions. She's showing us that the WNBA's appeal is broad, deep, and growing. It's not just about one player, no matter how talented she is. This whole situation is exposing some uncomfortable truths about how we view women's sports. There's this persistent idea that women's leagues can't stand on their own, that they need a savior or a gimmick to be successful. But the numbers Bird's throwing out there, they're blowing that idea out of the water. The WNBA's got a roster full of incredible athletes, each bringing their own skills and stories to the court. Clark's part of that story, sure, but she's not the whole book. And that's what makes the league so exciting. So next time you hear someone say the WNBA is only successful because of Caitlyn Clark, remember what Sue Bird said. Remember those playoff numbers.
The most shocking part, I mean, Caitlyn Clark at 1 doesn't surprise anybody. I don't think Angel Reese at 2 is really a surprising media rights contract, more salary. Sit down, shut up, and get paid. Ignorance is a big part of this too.
The league's thriving because it's got depth, talent, and excitement that goes way beyond any one player. Hold up though, if you think viewership is the only way to measure the WNBA's success, you're missing out on some mind-blowing stats. What's happening off the court might just be the biggest game changer of all. You ready for this? The WNBA is not just killing it on TV, they're crushing it in the real world too. We're talking about a nearly 50% increase in attendance this year. That's right, people are showing up in droves to watch these amazing athletes do their thing, and get this, merchandise sales, they've skyrocketed by 450% 150%. That's not a typo, folks. People aren't just watching the WNBA, they're wearing it, repping it, living it. Now, I know what you're thinking, but what about Caitlyn Clark? Isn't she the reason for all this? Well, yes and no. Clark's impact is huge, no doubt about it. The Indiana Fever, they're leading the league with an average of 17,235 fans at home games. That's a 39% increase from last year. Clark's star power is real, and it's lifting the whole league. But here's where things get complicated. Sue Bird's not just talking about numbers, she's calling out some serious issues. She's saying that the discussions around Clark have been hijacked by social media negativity. Bird dropped this truth bomb. Once Diana's comments went viral, it led to the Twitter trolls and bots taking over. It's like the real conversation got lost in a sea of hot takes and clickbait. And it gets even heavier. Bird's pointing out that racism has been a problem in the WNBA long before Clark showed up. She straight up said, racism has been impacting the WNBA well before this year. That's not something you hear every day from a league legend. She's not sugarcoating it. There are real issues that need to be addressed. Here's where it gets really messed up. Clark's been the target of racist remarks, but not against her, against her opponents. Bird's saying Clark's being used as a pawn in this whole mess. It's like people are using her success to push their own agendas, and that's not cool. But wait, there's more. Bird's not just calling out the trolls, she's taking aim at the media too. She's saying that a lot of the coverage of Clark and the WNBA has been shallow. Journalists aren't doing their homework, they're just repeating the same old inflammatory stories. It's like they're more interested in stirring up drama than actually reporting on the game. So what's the real story here? We've got a league that's growing like crazy, with fans showing up and buying merch like never before. We've got new stars like Clark bringing in huge crowds, but at the same time, we're dealing with deep-rooted issues like racism and media bias. It's not simple, it's not clean-cut, but it's real. This isn't just about one player or one season. It's about the future of women's basketball. It's about how we talk about women's sports, how we support these athletes, and how we deal with the ugly stuff that tries to bring them down.
Because I want everybody to know what she said. What she said about your boy, okay? This is the wonderful, the marvelous Sue Bird. I love her to death. We cover sports, right? Don't we cover sports? Looking at one of my producers, Sherry, do we cover sports? Do we cover sports? Aaron, do we cover sports?
Now, let's flip the script. You've heard Sue Bird's take, but what if she's not the only one feeling the heat? There's a whole other side to this story that's about to change how you see the WNBA forever. You know how sometimes a story just explodes out of nowhere? That's exactly what happened with Sue Bird's call out. It's like she lit a match and the whole sports world caught fire. But here's the thing, it's not just about Bird, it's about the entire WNBA and how the media is shaping what we think about women's basketball. Let's talk about Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp for a second. These guys are big names in sports media, right? When they talk, people listen. But Bird's saying they're part of the problem. She's calling them out for pushing narratives that aren't doing the WNBA any favors. It's like they've got this megaphone, but they're not using it to tell the whole story. But wait, it gets even crazier. Bird's not just complaining. She's inviting Smith to have a real conversation about this.
People that I've ever met, or one of the best women I've ever met in professional or collegiate sports. I love her. But I didn't appreciate this article that I read. But this is what she said. Viewership numbers with Caitlyn Clark are astronomical. She is a big draw. She brings in all the things.
Can you imagine that? A WNBA legend and one of ESPN's biggest stars sitting down to hash this out. That could be huge. It's not just about correcting facts, it's about changing the whole way we talk about women's sports. Now, let's get into something Bird said that's really got people talking. She mentioned these petty, jealous narratives floating around. What's that all about? Well, it's like there's this undercurrent of drama that's taking away from the actual game. Instead of talking about amazing plays and team strategies, we're getting caught up in who said what about who. That's not good for anyone. Not the players, not the fans, and definitely not the league. You know what's making all of this even crazier? Social media. Bird pointed out how Diana Taurasi's comments about Caitlyn Clark went viral, and suddenly it was like a feeding frenzy. Everyone had an opinion, everyone was taking sides. It's like social media took this one moment and turned it into this huge, overblown thing, and that's changing the whole conversation around the WNBA. But here's where it gets really messed up. Bird's saying a lot of the media coverage is just lazy. She called out journalists saying, yo, I don't know what they're researching research is like. The way it came across was they did none, and they were just listening to all the narrative.
The story is the story, Sue Bird. What was Stephen A. Smith and Shannon guilty of exactly? I've seen Shannon Sharp talk about it. And what I don't understand is they work for ESPN. So why are you hating on a business ESPN is in?
Ouch, that's a serious burn on the media, but she's got a point. If people are just repeating what they hear without doing their homework, how are we ever gonna get the real story? And this whole situation is shining a light on something bigger. It's not just about the WNBA or Sue Bird or Caitlyn Clark. It's about how we talk about women's sports in general. Are we giving these athletes the respect they deserve? Are we telling their stories the right way? Or are we just going for the easy headlines and the quick clicks? Here's the thing, we all play a part in this. The media, yeah, they've got a big responsibility, but so do we as fans. Every time we share a story, every time we comment on a post, we're shaping the narrative too. We've got the power to change how people see women's sports. So what are we gonna do with that power? All right, let's talk about why Sue Bird's call out is a total game changer for women's sports. The WNBA is crushing it with record-breaking viewership and massive growth.
I'm only addressing her points about me and what she said in relation to the whole Caitlyn Clark story. People out there that's been contributing to the WNBA. What was Shannon and I saying? We were saying, do y'all see these numbers?
But it's not just about the numbers, it's about how we talk about these incredible athletes. Bird's not just complaining, she's challenging us to think differently. She's saying, hey, pay attention to what's really happening here. It's not just about Caitlyn Clark or any one player, it's about a whole league of amazing talent that deserves respect. Here's the thing, we've got the power to change this. Every time we watch a game, buy a jersey, or share a highlight, we're sending a message. We're saying women's sports matter. So let's step up. Let's demand better coverage. Let's be the change we want to see, because this isn't just about basketball. It's about changing the game for all women in sports.